Here we go. Rhobin, welcome to Resilient by Design. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is very exciting and very new to me.
So exciting. And so before we dive in, because I'm really excited to chat with you about all the things, growing a design business, the 14 years that it takes to get to where you are today and all of the things. And I've really been watching you on socials and you've been inside my community. And so I'm excited to dive in and hear firsthand and share with the world everything that's going on for you and what you've learned. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Can you maybe just briefly introduce yourself to the listeners today?
Okay. My name is Rhobin DelaCruz. I am owner of Rhobin DelaCruz Designs, based in New York City. My company does residential, commercial, and vacation rental design. Anywhere anyone will have us.
Amazing. All of it. And how many people do you have in your company? What does it look like?
So right now it's just me because of the rebrand. Before I used to have employees, but I decided all of this stuff made me go to ground zero to rebuild the business so I can scale efficiently and properly.
Oh, I'm so excited to
Oh,
talk to you about this. This is like my
you
jam.
know, you know what? I'm sorry, I'm lying. So I have so I have a CFO, a studio manager, an executive assistant, a social media manager. So I kind of have a team. I gotta give them credit. I'm sorry.
So you have multiple people helping you, or you wear all those hats?
No, I have multiple people helping me, which I accrued in the last 6 months. So
Wow. Okay.
it's been a while since I've had employees, and then it just didn't register. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
So no, I think what I think is actually really interesting is that the shift that you've made where you say that you started from scratch again. Can we talk about that? What do you mean when you say that?
Absolutely. So I have been in the interior design game for 16 years. I am self-taught, and when I started, I have an advertising and marketing background. I used to work for Viacom, and I did ad sales, and I realized that this wasn't for me. And one of my friends just kind of whispered in my ear, "Have you ever thought about going into interior design?" And it was one of those moments and thoughts that never would have thought of, but it just like rang a bell. So I ended up leaving the corporate world and starting this business from the ground up. I was fortunate because all the people that I've known from Viacom, they were super supportive. So that was where my first clients came from. And it was a very learn as you go process.
Awesome. So you're like so many other designers that I interviewed on the podcast, which is not your first career, right? Coming at
Absolutely
it,
not.
realizing you had a passion, you didn't want to do what you were doing. And so you're like, let's do this thing, even though I have no idea what I'm doing.
Exactly. Exactly. I just knew that I I just I committed. I said I'm going to do this, whatever that means. So I fast forward 16 years later, I'm still around.
So what did that look like in those, that first decade, let's say, those first years? Like, what was your business like? What were some of your struggles, successes?
So I'm going to age myself. So, but not only did I get my clients from MTV, I also was looking for clients on Craigslist. And the way that I kind of learned how, I know, I see your face.
Hey, listen, I'm dating myself too. I remember Craigslist. I used it all the time for everything.
Everything, roommates,
Yes,
jobs,
that's how I found all my
everything,
roommates in Vancouver.
furniture.
Totally.
So, so my first clients, the way that I felt like I needed to learn design was I was hands-on, meaning I did the painting, I learned how to wallpaper, I learned how to install floors. So not only was I learning design, I was learning the practicality of it, of the work. So I really fully understood it. Um, and I had a very fake it till you make it attitude. So I always said yes, even though I didn't always have the answer. And I don't know if you remember this company. It was called Home Polish, but
It
it was a
sort of.
long
It
time
rings
ago.
a
Yeah.
bell. What did
They're
they do?
so they used to be, they were kind of like a talent agent where they were giving interior designers up and coming projects. So they were able to help expand their portfolio. The company's now defunct, but I'm giving them credit because they gave me the ability and exposure to not only high-end residential, but that's where my first commercial projects came from. And I always said, I know what I'm doing, you know. So
Real.
I built this experience of trial and error for the first decade, and I eventually did residential, commercial, and then segued it into vacation rental design when Airbnb started becoming crazy.
Wow.
So that
Okay. So you were doing a little bit of everything. Did you have any employees in those early years or assistants?
I did. I had a right-hand woman who has now left to start her own business. A few years ago, I had several design assistants and interior designers under me.
Okay. So you were like pretty busy, big, running a design firm. So what happened? Like you said, there was a shift, things changed. When did you realize that a change needed to happen?
So a few years ago, I started becoming disenchanted with the design world, and it's like, whoa, this is when you're in it, you don't really realize how like it comes to a time where like, okay, I'm kind of struggling. I've been doing this for over a decade, and I to other people, I am very successful because of the clients that I have, and just my portfolio that I built. But a couple years ago, I kind of realized like if I am going to continue doing this, it's time to be honest with myself. And that was recognizing that I am wonderful at design, project management, client relationships, all of that. But in order for me to be successful in the way that I see other designers, I had to admit there are aspects that I am not good at, and that was operations, finance, processes, things that weren't my natural forte. So that was when 2 years ago I decided to make a shift and really dive in. What are the things that I can do if I'm going to continue doing this to make change? And then
Hmm.
I heard about business coaching, and that's when everything was the beginning of all the new changes.
So that's when you realize, okay, like this is a business. Took a little while to
Yeah.
figure that out, right? Because we're so as creatives, I know for many of us, and like that was my story, just different, bit of a different story, but at the same time, it was that concept of, oh, this is a business, and I have no freaking clue how to run a business. I'm so good at the creative and the peopling, right? And it's like, I need help. And that's when
Yeah.
I started hiring business coaches. I've taken so many courses and business coaches, and every single one of them has helped bring that knowledge to me.
it's 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 been amazing because honestly, um, when I started 16 years ago, it wasn't as open of a community as it is now, and I
Mm,
only recently heard about all these different business coaches out there, and I was just like, oh, actual real change can happen. So I did a lot of research and figured out the first one that I wanted to work with, and it was a real eye-opening game changer. I was like, whoa, I can
mm,
actually make a change.
yeah, amazing. So then what happened? Like, what are the things that you chose to change? You mentioned earlier, like maybe your team, is it the types of projects? We'll talk about the rebrand in a second. I definitely want to talk about that. But what came out of like that initial business coaching and realizing, oh shoot, like there's people who can help me figure this out? What were those initial changes that you wanted to make?
So when I decided to do this, I didn't have any more employees under me. So I was just like, okay, going back to basics. This is what am I going to do, and what am I not good at? And it was important for me to find a business coach that would give me the foundation of processes, because I knew that is not that was a skill set that I was completely lacking. So understanding processes and being able to look ahead with financials and not being intimidated um, by that. That was my initial grounding force of what I wanted to focus on.
I love that. It's a mindset too, right? It's a lot of us get stuck with the financials because we are afraid of it, or we feel like we're not good at it, or we don't want to do it because it's boring, whatever it might be.
Yes, yes. It didn't, like, I knew I was avoiding it, but I didn't know how much of a mind stuck mindset I was in. And it was just really being educated that you can learn this stuff. That's like hearing this from podcasts and hearing other people's stories. I was like, oh, I think I can learn this. So that was kind of
Right.
like the main turning point. I was like,
So what did you change? Like, I'm super curious because I did just interview another designer who talked about, she came from her previous career was accounting. She was a CPA,
mhm,
so very
mm,
different. And she talked about like, she got really strategic with her business when she was starting it, and that she had two separate bank accounts. One account was for her design fees, one was for like the profit. Did you make any changes like that to how you ran the money? She also mentioned that she started to resell products. She wasn't doing that before. Were there any sort of concrete changes you made to helping you understand your financials, even as little as I sit down once a week and I look at it? Like, what were a couple of those things that you changed?
got it. Okay, so I hired a CFO. Um, I know that I'm never going to be good at the financial stuff, but I can understand it and someone can teach me, and I can work with someone on a monthly basis to go over my numbers, what's going in and what's going out. So that's one of the things that I've incorporated. Also, I've never done procurement, so I needed to know how that works as well. So it's easier when someone's telling you exactly what's happening versus me trying to break down numbers and what accounting stuff, which is not really my skill.
So, did you offer procurement before?
I did not. I did
Ah,
not. That was that was that the part of that learning process. Like, I have always been able to sustain myself, live, be happy, but I've never been able to break that income bracket that I see other designers. And when I realized that procurement is a significant thing in order to be super successful in interior design, that's what was part of the things that the business coaches were teaching me. I was like, oh, it was an aha moment of what it is, how not to be intimidated, how to operate it, all the different parts. It was basically an entire year and a half of crash course college of how to operate and run an interior design business.
I love that. It's so interesting. The universe works in mysterious ways, Robin. I literally interviewed two other designers this morning, and like both of them talked about this specific thing. Like the universe is telling me I need to amplify this message. And when I spoke with Andrea of Andrea Krill Interiors, the one who was the accountant, she said that was one of the big things that helped her move from a side hustle to a full-time business, excuse me, was starting to resell product.
Yes,
She realized from what she learned from podcasts, from taking my course, from other, industry leaders, that if she wasn't doing that, it would be very hard for her to scale and to replace the income that she was used to coming from the corporate world. I just think it's such, like, I'm saying this because it's such an important message. If you're listening today, please. Start doing this. Buy it and
If there's
resell it to your client.
absolutely, if there's anything, procurement is how you become super successful and change your income bracket as an interior designer from a hobbyist to a successful business.
Yeah. And then the only other way would be to charge design fees that are very expensive. Like you would have
Yeah.
to be charging design fees. And I know some very successful designers that do this and they don't share their discount, but their design fees would make you fall off your chair, right? Like you have to make up for it somehow because how else can you sustain a CFO? Like, dude, you've got some like pretty high fancy roles in your company. I'm like, maybe I need a CFO. This is great.
I have learned a lot I've learned a lot in the last 2 years. Surround yourself with smarter people so that way you can be a CEO.
I love it. I love that. I think, yeah, I feel like that's a message that's out there in the world. We just have to hear it at the right time, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely. And it was like I was so afraid to admit that I didn't understand financials for a long time. And I would never tell people. It's like, well, I can pay my credit card bills and I can go on
Right.
vacation. But it's like it was something that I just never wanted to share with other entrepreneurs. But when you recognize that and you can be honest with yourself, then it completely changes the game.
Yeah, it's interesting when I was at High Point where you were, we were both at the same High Point market.
I know.
We just missed each other, but I was, was like,
Missed
oh,
connections.
and then somebody else said, they're like, oh, I saw Rhobin and he was asking
Yes.
where you were. I was like, I got there too late. But I saw Bunny Williams talk. And one thing she said, I loved her talk and I loved her coffee table book. It was amazing. But one thing that resonated with me that she said, and this is like even her back in the 80s when she started her business or started in the design world, she said, interior design is an immensely complicated business model. And we don't give it enough credit, especially when you bring in procurement. And so for anyone listening who is like, oh, so you just flip a switch and all of a sudden you're good at numbers and you understand the business, it's not that simple. And it is
No.
okay if you feel intimidated. It is okay if you feel overwhelmed because it is not as straightforward and basic as a lot of other service-based businesses. There are so many layers. And so I just want to say that because I know there's people listening today who are feeling like you were feeling, how I was feeling, and are feeling like, oh, it's nice to hear somebody get through because you don't just hire a business coach and fix the way you are. You don't just hire a CFO. You do have to slowly start to understand the nuances. And this is a very complicated business that we're in.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You hit it. It's like so many different layers is the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're getting there, right? And I think that what it sounds like that I'm hearing from you, Rhobin, is it was the moment when you realized you needed to change, the moment where you
Yeah.
realized, nope, this isn't good enough. I want to do better. I recognize that this is an area where I need help. So I'm going to find the
Mhm.
help in a coach, in a CFO. And you slowly start to take that. Now, okay, can we just talk about the CFO though? This is like, how can you afford a CFO? Is that expensive? Is it fractional? Like, talk to me about this.
So I want everyone to know a CFO is attainable. I have a fractional CFO, and I hired her on before I was ready to have her on. But I knew that I needed to start building relationships, and I wanted to set myself up for success when all of the changes were coming, which is all happening at this moment. So she slowly integrated me into the work, and I was really transparent with her. I was like, "Look, I want to hire you to build a relationship, but I don't have many clients right now. So what I am not good at, I need your expertise and I need you to walk me through when all the changes start coming."
What would be
That's
the
how that went through.
difference? I mean, it sounds like very smart strategic move on your part. What's the difference
Hmm.
between a CFO and an accountant
Um,
in
okay,
your
so
experience?
my experience with an accountant, like he did my taxes every single year and did my bookkeeping. But he was an accountant specifically for everyone. The difference between my CFO, she has bookkeeping, she has accounting experience, she's a CPA, but she works specifically with interior designers. So she taught me numbers that are going in, numbers that are going out. I don't do this, but she wanted to make sure that I had the skill sets of understanding the bookkeeping at the end of the month. What she's able to do in addition to that is that she's helping me figure out projections for the year. How many clients do I need? How much can I pay employees? Um, when can an employee get a raise? When is an employee not selling enough hours of furniture to hold their weight? Like all of these things that I never knew. It's like billable hours for an employee. Uh, she's teaching me all of this stuff that I never knew that I needed to know. So that is the significant difference.
Wow.
Along
I
with,
love that.
yeah, that was it was it was it was intense in a very positive way. These were all the questions that I never knew that I needed to ask.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Like, these are the questions you didn't know you needed to ask. How can you know what you're missing when you don't know, when you don't come from that world? Well, obviously, listen to this podcast. That's one way. We will save you as best we can. Um,
We hope, even if it's just one person.
Totally. And that's how it works, right? And like you get help by someone and then we all pass it along and we help. Talk to me about, I mean, we talked about the money. I want to talk about the importance of systems and processes because you mentioned that was something, and you know that that's something that's near and dear to my heart because that
Yeah.
was instrumental in the change in my business. What have you learned about systems and processes and what their role is in a design firm?
Okay, so um the last year and a half, I was fortunate not to have I was I was fortunate not to be forced to take on many clients. I just had my repeat clients, so it allowed me to really understand all the things that I was learning and actually implement them. So within the last couple of months, I started actually executing them. And what I learned is I put all these things in place and I'm still learning and still doing, but I did the foundational work for when I have a discovery call. These are the questions that I need to ask. What do I do after the discovery call? If the client qualifies, these are the documents that I need to send them in order for them to be informed of the process. It was very different than how I used to run my own business. I kind of like, oh, okay, let's seat in my pants. I'm gonna do this now. but
Yeah, make it up on the spot.
exactly what the the difference is with the system and processes, it has organized my mind and given me a structure to follow that I never would have been able to think of on my own, nor document it, so that I can teach another employee and scale it. When I used to have employees, we would just like learn together. It's like, okay, it's time to do this now. It's time to do that now, and it would become systematic in a sense. But
Mhm.
being able to accept the fact that I can write these down and that I can give it to a senior designer and they can use this platform to teach the rest of the team so I can do CEO stuff. That was super important and mind blowing because I should
Mhm.
not, as the business leader, be in the nitty gritty of the design work. I should be top level execution and, building the business and running.
Yeah, and I think I think it's sometimes a hard thing for us to let go, and I don't know if you struggle with this sort of mental shift.
Yes.
Yeah, right? Like there's this
Yes.
belief sometimes like no, the client's expecting me to be the one to do it or I don't really trust that they're going to do a good job, so let me just oversee it in the most micromanaging way.
Absolutely. It was one of the things that I needed to shift in my mind. It's like I can step away from this. And the whole reason that you're building a team that you trust, is so that you can relinquish some of these responsibilities and trust that it's going to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that is, and I've learned this, I'm sure you've had this in your firm, people are going to make mistakes, and you just have to accept that's part of doing business and just hope that you can correct the behavior so it doesn't happen again.
Exactly. And let's start with the people being, I'm going to make mistakes.
Yes, that's true. We will
Let
make
me learn from
mistakes.
that so that my future staff does not have to make the mistakes.
Yeah, it's so true. It's like, let's learn from the mistakes we do make, but know that you can only communicate so much information to somebody working for you. There's always going to be a margin of error, and
Correct.
that's just part of being human, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mistakes are going to happen, you know, as long as you're aware of the potential mistakes that can happen, you at least have the tools to correct it.
Yeah. And so this is a really interesting idea of like systems and process so you can scale and you can grow, which sounds like is something that you are looking to do. Am I right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I'm curious. I mean, I want to talk about the branding. I guess now is a good time to talk about that. So, like, can we talk about this idea of like you come from marketing, so you probably already have a really good foundation when it comes to brand and all of the knowledge.
Mhm.
Um, like what precipitated the branding and the because you did a rebrand, did you not?
I did a complete overhaul. Yes. So part of the process, part of accepting that I needed to make some changes, and the fact that I needed to surround myself with smarter people, committing to doing the things correctly. And in my mind, that meant my processes. That also meant relaunching the website, also creating a new look, like a real branded look. That also meant hiring a copywriter, and putting all these things together that I know I'm not good at. And knowing that as expensive as it is, it's gonna pay off in the end. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, and the rebrand happened a month and a half ago. It's super exciting. And and I'm saying this to because it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, and it's letting me know that I'm in the right place at the right time. Within 5 weeks of the rebrand, I've been asked to do 2 podcasts, and as of a week and a half ago, I had a publicist. What I'm going to do with a publicist? Am I ready for all that? The universe is giving it to me, so I'm
Take it.
taking it all in. I'm
Take
taking
it.
it all in.
I love it. I love it. And I'm one of those 2 podcasts. I am so
Yes.
honored to be the first
Thank
one.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
so I guess what I'm hearing is this the first time you really invested in the brand and the website? Had you invested in the past, or did you more like bootstrap it?
Bootstrap. Bootstrap. Absolutely. Absolutely bootstrap.
So it was expensive. Which part of it do you think of the whole rebranding process, which has been the most impactful for you?
Um, so I did the rebrand first, the rebrand and the website. So that whole experience was very educational. And entire process of what it looks like and actually deep diving with my guys. Um, that was visually impactful, and it gave me the vision of the future and who I can draw as clients. But I also understood the importance of copywriting and speaking to people and getting them on their level. So there was no way that I wasn't going to do both, but truthfully, um, the impact, it goes hand in hand with one another. I'm not a writer. I am not a writer. So I knew I would never be able to do that, but I just kept hearing through different podcasts the importance of copywriting. And I already understood the importance of branding and visuals. So I had to do them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the messaging, right? And I think sometimes, especially as creatives, we get caught up in the visual and the look of things. And I know I've been guilty of that, especially in the early years.
Yeah.
I thought that branding was just like fonts and colors. But
Hmm.
really, it's actually so much more than that. It's understanding like your ethos as a brand, like who are you? Who do you serve? What makes you unique? What are your differentiators? How do you communicate that using the copy on your website to make it sound as interesting? We had a copywriter, was it a copywriter? Yeah, who came to designer's room and like did a copy audit of different people's website pages. And it
Yeah.
was so amazing. I took a million notes and she didn't, from when she was reviewing someone else's website. And you could really see the power of if you just tweak the wording here, or if you reframe it to be about the client, or if you do this. And I was like, I had like a million notes of how I wanted to change my own website. And it's so true. You want to grab people and pull them in with more than just the visual. But I think sometimes as designers, because we are so visual, we
Yeah.
overlook the copy. Would you say
Yeah.
that's fair?
Absolutely. And I'm going to use this as an example just to like bring this full circle. When I decided that when I started doing research on business coaching, it was the copy that drew me. It was like, oh, this is exactly what I need. I'm going to sign up with this person versus that person. It's like,
Yeah.
they're
And
speaking
it
to me.
and it resonates with you at a different time. Like I've worked with multiple business coaches and each
Hmm.
one at the time resonated with what I needed then. And then a
Yes.
year or two later, that wasn't the person I needed anymore. I needed
Yes.
somebody else who was speaking to the more spiritual side of me because I was leaning into that, or speaking into more of the money mindset and the financials. And I think it's understanding where your clients are at. So when you're
Hmm.
writing that copy, you really are meeting them. I know you say people say this all the time, but you're meeting them where they're at. You're speaking to their pain points. And they're
Yes.
like, yes, I need Rhobin. He is reading my mind. And a copywriter is very skilled at
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very eye-opening process.
That's amazing. So how has it changed? Like, how has your business changed? I know it's not been that long. And you mentioned the podcast, the publicist. What about from a client perspective or within your own design community in your city? What's changed for you since you did the rebrand?
Okay, so I think one of the other things that has been a significant change of how I do things was being really open to meeting other designers and actually learning that world, which comes with, understanding procurement. So my first market was in fall. And, after 16 years, my first market, I tell that to people and they're like blown out of their seats. Like, this wasn't my world. I was very intimidated by it. So my first market was fall. And that was me understanding what this world is like. And just learning, learning, learning. And then my second market was this past April that you and I were both at. And I had a different intention because I knew that my rebrand was about to happen. And I can see the vision of where I want my business to go and what I'm capable of. I knew that I needed to meet heavy hitters. Whatever that means, I don't know. But I need to start putting my name and my face in front of people. And that is where it has changed exponentially because I just started meeting really genuine people, people that would teach me the way that they do things. It's from one connection to another, and just being open and receptive to just growing and connecting. That was a significant change. Um, and I'm still kind of reeling in it because the people that I'm connected with now, I'm just feeling super grateful. But it never would have happened for like you. It never would have happened unless I had that mindset of just being open to meeting with people. And I know it's very intimidating for other people who are not as extroverted as I am,
Yeah.
but the one thing you got to remember, everybody at market is super cool, whether they're introverted or extroverted. Everyone wants to be around community. And that was one of the most beautiful things that I learned from a market. So,
I love that, Rhobin. I love that you just shared that because I often forget this and I have to remind myself when you are going to any type of event,
mhm.
give yourself a goal, give yourself an intention. Because otherwise, and like you're outgoing, I'm actually not as outgoing naturally. I'm more of like an extroverted introvert. And
Yeah.
so my inclination is just to talk to the people I know.
Mhm.
and then maybe go home. Like have a good time for
Yeah.
an hour and leave. And I find market very overwhelming because I need quiet time to recover. There is no escape. And so I find it very draining actually. And so I actually have to tweak how I do market as someone who needs that introverted time to recover. I've
Totally.
already thought about it. I'm like, maybe I need to get an Airbnb, and like halfway through the day I leave and I like just have quiet time when I come back. But like we're all so different. But going to market with an intention, because if not, you end up, this could be true of any event. You could be just going to an event in your city, but like you end up wandering around. Maybe you talk to someone, maybe you don't. Then maybe you leave and you wonder if it was worth spending the money. Especially in business, if you are doing something with a business purpose, to show up with intention. And I love that you had that intention for market. It was like, I'm going to meet the heavy hitters. I'm going to make connections in this industry. And you freaking did it. And like, even if you only made one connection, it would be worth it. Like you just, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, absolutely. Even just one, you never know where it's going to take you. It's you got to learn to be uncomfortable because it opens up opportunity.
Yeah. Push yourself out of that comfort zone and be open to I was just chatting with another designer who was saying, it can be uncomfortable to talk about. This was a designer who was new, just launched her business. And she was saying,
Mhm.
I still don't feel like saying like, oh, I'm an interior designer or I have a design firm. But she said she pushed herself beyond that. And she was at a hotel bar.
Mhm.
And when the person asked what she did, she gave the usual spiel. And then she caught herself and said, oh, actually, I also just launched my own interior design firm. I'm an interior designer. And that
Yeah.
person was like, oh my gosh, I'm looking to hire a designer. And she ended up hiring her. So
Yeah.
if you can't show up and share who you are and what you're doing, what you're after, what your intention is, it's going to be really hard to see those opportunities and to seize those opportunities.
Yes, absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
love that. Yeah. So, what would you recommend to a designer right now who's listening, who's feeling a little stuck, or maybe they've just started? Like, what's your advice to someone? Because it sounds like you've done a lot of different things to get to where you are today, which is amazing. What would maybe be the first thing that you would recommend someone do?
It is okay. So when I think about the things that I've done and the lessons that I've learned and anything that I want to impart with anyone, um, I honestly believe it's okay to say you don't know what you don't know. Had I had that mindset in earlier on, my business would have been very different. It probably wouldn't have taken me 14 years to make these shifts. So that's the number one thing. That's one of the number one things. It's okay to say you don't know what you don't know, and be ready to fail because failing is where all the strong lessons come from. It's okay to fail. It's how you get back up and continue on.
Love that. Is that your nugget? Because boom, mic drop.
That is my nugget. I feel those are the most powerful things that I have told myself in order for me to succeed. Of all the things that I've done and this whole rebrand, I was like, ooh, I'm proud of you. You said you couldn't do something and you figured it out and you admitted it.
Mm. That is a lesson right there, Rhobin, is also giving yourself the like kudos, right? Like we're so our own worst critics and we're so quick to move on from a win or to downplay what we've done. Like what you said right there to me is everything. Like give yourself a pat on the back. Shit, look how far I've come. It's funny. Yesterday I had this thought as I was falling asleep, and I don't know why I thought about it. And I was like, I feel like for myself, because I'm terrible at recognizing or remembering even my wins. And because yesterday an episode just came out of the Wingnut Social podcast that I was the guest
Mm.
host of, which
Oh,
guys, if you're
yay.
listening, go check it out. I guest hosted for Darla Powell 2 episodes.
We
Um,
love.
and I'll actually I'll get my producer to link those in the show notes here. But I was thinking about it and I was like, and I'd listened to a podcast about people every 90 days looking back. No, it wasn't a podcast. It's this book I'm listening to actually. It's called
Mhm.
Who Not How. Great book, Benjamin Hardy.
Oh,
Sorry, Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, and Who Not How. And they talk about every 90 days looking back and cataloging your wins.
mm-hmm.
Because as
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs, we really tend to breeze past them We're always going to the
Yeah.
next. And then we don't actually feel momentum. We don't feel like we're making progress when we are. And I thought about that as I was listening to it last night in bed. And I thought, I think I need like a wins jar on my desk, because
Yeah.
then it's like when I get a win, like, boom, like that was pretty cool. I got invited to be a guest host of a really prominent podcast. Like, I'm going to write that on a piece of paper. I'm going to put it in a jar. So at the end of the year, I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to I'm going to have a party for myself
I love it.
because no one else
I
is doing
love
it
it.
for me.
I love it.
Yeah, you got to appreciate the when you're taking the steps to get where you're going, because it's all progress and it kind of happens little by little sometimes and we don't even notice it.
Yeah, no, that's correct. That's correct. Just
This
taking a
is
moment and just like pausing.
amazing. So, what is next for you? You've shared your nugget. Before we wrap up our time together, where are you taking? You keep talking about a vision. I'm super curious. Where is Rhobin DelaCruz Designs going?
So I'm going to scale, and the big vision is I am eventually going to have a team that does residential and vacation rentals, and then I'll have a separate team that does commercial design.
Woo! That's big. I love it.
I'm putting it out there, universe. I'm putting it out there.
Yes. So you can come back on my podcast a year from now. We're going to check in with you. I'll be your accountability person.
Thank you. I'll take it. I'll take it, especially from you.
It'll be like May 2025. You're like, oh, shoot, I better speed up the whatever, this, that, and the other, because Rebecca's going to have me back. No, it's not going to happen in a year, but maybe it will. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That was I didn't tell you I was going to be asking that question. So I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable with us. It's been so nice to have you on the podcast. I'm excited to follow your journey and see what comes your way, because the universe is just bringing opportunities left, right, and center, and you are ready for them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. This was awesome. Thank
Amazing.
you.
And now before we go, can you let everyone listening know where they can find and follow you?
RhobinDelaCruz.com. Robin is spelled Rhobin. Also Rhobin DelaCruz Designs on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you guys enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Rhobin, thank you for bringing your energy to that conversation, your wisdom, your insight. It's wonderful to hear from a designer who's been doing this a little bit longer. You know, quite often we forget that sometimes we start to run a business and we get excited and then we kind of get set in our ways and then things chug along. And before we know it, we look back and we think, whoa, I've been doing this for a while. Maybe there's a better way. And I think your generosity, Rhobin, with your wisdom, but also with your vulnerability and sharing what you went through and how you decided to make a change and where your blind spots were before in your business. It really speaks a lot to your personality and your integrity. And I'm excited to follow your journey, this rebrand, and see where it takes you. And guys, if you were inspired by Rhobin's episode, I know it would mean a lot to him if you could send him a DM on Instagram. So go give him a follow on Instagram, Rhobin DelaCruz, and that's Rhobin is spelled differently. So listen closely. It's RHOBIN De La Cruz Designs. So go check him out, Rhobin DelaCruz Designs on Instagram. Send him a DM. Let him know you heard this episode. If it was inspiring to you, I know it would mean a lot to him. And of course, go hop on over to iTunes and give us a review. If you can review our podcast and give us 5 stars, that means more people will tune in and we can expand our reach, our ability to inspire and to improve designers' lives. All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode with Rhobin, and I'll see you soon.